Say
All right.
being recorded, so
So we need to behave, eh?
yes. Now it's being
You're
recorded.
being recorded.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's why. Yeah. Hi, Cleve.
Okay. So Bruchim Abayim. Welcome everybody. It's fantastic to see you all on this night where we are celebrating the letter Bet, or like somebody said last night, you bet on it. So we're gonna begin as we always do, going over one of our piyutim, Adon SELIHOT, that we've been singing for the past two nights, um, and let me just find it for a second. My computer got crashed because of the thunderstorms, so now I have to get back to it, but I think I'll do this reasonably quickly. Excellent. So I'm gonna share the screen, and let's see if we can all sing together. We are working on, let's see. Can you see it? I hope you are.
Yes.
Thank you. So we're going to sing the first four lines to the letter Dalet, and then we're going to sing together the Pizmon, the refrain, Chatanu lefanecha, Rachem alenu. We have made mistakes in front of you, God. Please forgive us. The refrain says, Chatanu lefanecha, Rachem alenu. חטאנו לפניך רחם עלינו. So I'll sing the first four lines and let's sing that together. אדון הסליחות בוחן לבבות גולה עמוקות דובר צדקות חטאנו לפניך רחם עלינו חטאנו לפניך רחם עלינו. So that's our introduction, and now I have the immense honor to introduce to you Daniel Cababié, who is going to be our presenter for letter Bet. And you've probably seen a publicity with a very prominent number of things that Daniel has done as part of his bio. And I'm not going to use it, first of all, because Daniel is my cousin, and I just can't believe that he has said yes to actually celebrate with us one of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And I also want to tell you that he's been not only a very prominent person, president of a synagogue in Buenos Aires, Betel. Some of you may remember Rabbi Marshall Mayer, Alav Shalom, and also Rabbi Yederi, also may he rest in peace. And Daniel was a president, and not only president, he's been also a figure for me in both the human way and also the Jewish way. He sang, I still remember him singing the Haftarah at Betel, and even reading the famous passage of Yosel Rakover every night during every year on the Yamim Noraim. So not only that, I had an opportunity many Shabbatot to go to his home and be together and study and doing wonderful things. And I'm especially moved tonight because Daniel has been like this kind of a mensch, this kind of a person in many ways for many people, but especially for me. At times in my life when things were not so great, and he's been there in the way that tzaddikim do it, silently. So with those are going to be my words of introduction. With that, Daniel, the spotlight is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ramon. Well, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Daniel Cababié. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, 71 years ago. And I've been married for 47 years, which speaks words of my wife, Graciela, and of course of me also. We are the parents of 2 and grandparents of 7. So when Ramon phoned me and he asked me if I wanted to just take on the bed, well, my first thought was in taking bed. Because he offered me different possibilities, and my first thought was bed. So maybe it was because of Bethel, which was my congregation for most of my adult life, since I was a teenager, where I had great moments, like in the summer camp, where I started to contact a little bit more seriously with Judaism, where I met my wife, the synagogue where we got married, the synagogue where Ramon married my daughter, Valeria, and the congregation that was with me also through very difficult moments, like when my 21-year-old sister was kidnapped and murdered in 1973. So the bed is something that appears to me all through my life. And furthermore, when we moved to Miami, we took a membership in another synagogue, and the name of the synagogue is Bet Torah. So again, you have the beds there. And I was reflecting that perhaps the bet also comes from being the Bechor, the first son that needed to be redeemed from the coin. But I was seriously doubting, because for me to give a talk, especially in English, which is not my mother language, is it's quite tough. But all of a sudden it hit me. You know, when Ramon called me, that week was Parashat Balak, which is Bet, of course. And the main character of that parasha is Bilam, another Bet, the sorcerer. And something interesting happens in that parasha. God opens the mouth of the donkey and the donkey speaks. So I thought, well, if such a thing happened once, it may happen twice and a donkey may speak. So I went into that. But seriously, there are way more reasons that link me with the bet, and which make me think that the bet is it's something important. Once when we were having a talk with Rabbi Marshall Mayer, which Ramon mentioned, he asked us, okay, tell me, he was teaching Beraşit, which let me, if I can share my screen, let me try to show you.
No puedes ir para acá, para acá, para acá, sino solo para adelante. Eso es lo que decía Marshall y Mode.
So, if you can see the screen, he said, okay, tell me, why, if we are speaking about creation, we don't start with the Alef, which is the first letter. And he showed us the first word of the first book of the Torah, and of course it was Beraşit, and he said, you see, there's nothing on top, there's nothing on the right, there's nothing below. The only way you can go is left, which is for the future. This is why the history of the world in the allegorical story of the Torah starts with Bet. So then I realized that perhaps the most important thing of this story wasn't that it was trying to depict how the universe began, but most probably what for the universe was created. So if we get into the first word now, you can see that starts with Bet, and it continues all the way to Tav, which is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And if I can borrow something that Janet said yesterday, you can see that she linked Alef with Adam. We are stuck right in the middle. Let me give you a little writing context first, because it will help me to develop what I'm thinking about the Bet. The Hebrew alphabet started probably in what is now the north of Israel and the south of Lebanon. And it was created taking ideograms probably from the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So what they did was pick up the first sound of the hieroglyphic that was being shown and separated. So with this process, with only 22 characters, they would be able to combine them and write almost everything. So those characters are linked with the ideogram that was their origin. The Alef, for example, was the ox head. The Bet was Bait, which was the house. The Gimel was the camel, and so on. Another thing that they did was to link the letters to the numbers. So the Alef would be one, the Bet would be 2, Gimel 3, and so on. And this is important because when we want to analyze Hebrew text, we need to take into consideration these 3 axes that are linked to our letters. So let me take this out if I can. Now, being the first word, Bereshit, if we apply a sort of Kabbalistical lens to that word, we could easily say that the whole history of the universe is contained in that word, because we have the Bet and we have the Tav, which is the end of the alphabet. But furthermore, let me show something. I don't know why. Let me. If you take a careful look to the word, you see that the Bet is written in a bigger type than the rest of the letters. Well, Hebrew doesn't have the capital letters, but this happens several times in the Torah, that we can find big letters or little letters in several points there. Now, our tradition says that whenever you find a different character like this, it's to point to you that something different from the literal text that you are going to read is going to happen. And if you continue reading the story of Berashit, you'll find that it's plagued with divisions, it's plagued with separations, it's plagued with splits. You have heaven and earth, you have light and darkness, you have water from above, water from below, you have the earth separating from the waters below, and you have the earth giving, let's say, birth to two kinds of seeds. So the number 2 is constantly repeated in this relate, which is the Bet. It is the number 2. And going back to the thought that the important thing should be the what for and not only the how, we can very confidently say that the universe needs start with 2, because before the 2, there's only the infinite unformed oneness. By the way, speaking of creation, this sort of approach reminds a little bit to the Big Bang theory, but it's not the matter that we are speaking or we are trying to develop now. So history begins with Bet, which is diversity, is multiplicity. And as you already know, the Bet is also Bait, which is home. Therefore, our world, which is our house, is where our history develops. And that means that we need to take care of it. Sounds ecological? Well, it is. But since it's also the number 2, perhaps it hints us to the idea that building a bite, it's easier if we do it with somebody else. And furthermore, when we think about the future, we have Banim, we have Banot, the children, which is also Bet and which is also Bet. So this Bet is pointing us to the future and to be open to diversity. Just think about for example, a child working and playing in the sun, in the wet sand in the beach. He makes a figure and he says, okay, this is my dad. And he makes another figure and says, this is my mom. And he makes another figure and says, this is a house, this is a tree, this is me, this is my sister, and so on. Now, everything is just wet sand, but the beauty of the compound is precisely the difference that he made. So I think we humans are something like that. We are brothers and sisters because we have the same origin, but each one of us has a particular individuality that makes us different from the others. And the beauty of the compound is exactly the diversity. Now, I know that if I, being Ramon here and other Hazanim, I may be stepping into deep waters if I get into music, but it's like each one of us vibrates in a uniparticular way, and it's a unique note. And the way we relate with each other would determine whether we have a symphony or we have just noise. If we are able to interact with our fellow humans and to accept the diversity and to embrace it and to love it and to be able to hear to our fellow humans, then will we have a symphony. We will have harmony. If we try to impose what we think over the other, if we are not able to open our ears to listen to the other, if we try to cancel what the other because we don't like what he or she has to say, we will just have noise. So the Pirkei Avot asked, Eizeu Chacham, who is wise? And he answers, and the Pirkei Avot answers, Halomet Mikol Adam, the one that can learn from each and every individual. That's why the Bet is very important for me, because it teaches us that the real richness of life is not the monolithic thinking. In reading only what agrees with what we thought, or watching only the TV channels that say in the news the things that we like to hear, but in embracing diversity and in being always ready to actually listen to our fellow humans regardless of whether we agree or not. And we should be open to hear what others have to say. Now, don't get me wrong, because I know there's evil in the world, and there's misinformation, and that we should stand against that. But even to do that, we need to listen carefully what the other have to say, and then try to express our ideas clearly without forcing them onto the other people. So the Bet is pointing us to be open to new ideas. I remember always what my maternal grandmother once taught me. By the way, he was a glorious sage in life because he couldn't even finish his primary school. But being only 13 years old, he traveled by himself from Syria to Buenos Aires, having no relatives there. And in a gap of 10 years, he managed to bring all his family there. And he taught me, And he continuously repeated me that, listen, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So that's to teach you that you need to listen at least the double of what you speak. And in between that, you need to think what you are going to say. So I try to not go much further with this, but let me show you another thing that I guess it would be interesting. Here you see the cursive Bet and the cursive Half. Now, back to what Marshall Mayer was telling us. My question was why we don't choose perhaps the half, which is also closed on top, on the right, on the bottom, and it's open to the future. And this is my guess. I think that there's a huge difference, because if you look to the half, it's right, it's straight in the bottom, and the bed has the movement there. With half, you can write koach, might, strength, but with bet, you can write beracha. And beracha has the same root than berech, which is knee. And the implicit idea in berech is flexibility. So perhaps in creating the world, thinking to create it with beracha was a message to us to learn to be flexible, to learn to listen to the other, and to learn to examine all our alternatives. It's interesting because when Ramon put the subtitle to watch to this session, he of course used Bohen Levavot, which is the one that examines our hearts. And it is my guess that during this period of SELIHOT, when we are preparing for the high holidays, when we read Bohen Levavot, we are actually asking for the possibility of opening our hearts to be examined. So I would ask you just one more thing. While we are preparing for these high holidays, when we read Bohen Levavot, let's take the chance to think that one of the themes of the high holidays is second chances. Again, the bet, again, the two. We read of Agar thinking that she was going to die, and have the second chance of open again her eyes and see that she had water. We read from Abraham thinking that he was ordered to kill his son, and the angel stops his hand, and he had the second chance not to commit that murder. From Isaac's perspective, he knew that he was going to be sacrificed because he asked his father, where's the animal for the sacrifice? And he was saved, so he had a second chance. And we read about Hannah, which was barren, and after praying, she was given the second chance, and he got pregnant of the prophet Shmuel. And in Yom Kippur, we read about the prophet Yonah, escaping from his mission, being swallowed by the big fish, but finally having the second chance of accomplish his mission. And we read about Nineveh, the people that repented and had a second chance and were spared. So what I would ask you when we read Bohen Levavot and we think about the second chances that are one of the themes of the Yamim Noraim, think in inspecting our hearts and try to make amendments if we had made something wrong to our fellow humans. And most importantly, try to be able to give second chances to that one that might have hurt you inadvertently or perhaps not. So this is why Bet is very important to me, because it not only speaks of my personal history, it shows me that I need to be open to new ideas, to enjoy diversity, to take care of our world, to build with our fellow humans, and to give second chances. And I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I did this time, and that you will take care of our precious Bet in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel, so much. Tizke mitzvot. May you have the opportunity to perform even more mitzvot than you have already. I wanted to also remind everybody that Beraishit is also about the beginning of the world, and so it is Rosh Hashanah. So thank you for bringing that to us. I wanted to also to let everybody know that if by any chance you have missed any of the sessions, I'm posting a link on YouTube on each one of them. If by any chance you can't see it, be sure to contact me at ramon.tassat@gmail.com. I'm gonna just put my email in there so you can have it. Tomorrow night we have the privilege to continue, you guess, with letter Gimel. David Balto will be teaching us, I'm sure, very beautiful thoughts, probably as beautiful as Daniel has given us tonight. And I wanted to let you know that Shirat HaNefesh, the congregation that I have the honor to lead, has a theme this year, Shavat Aniim Ata Tishma, the clamor of the poor you shall hear, and is related to exactly what Daniel was saying about inequality and the way that we talk to each other and we find out how to achieve consensus and how to bring ourselves to a better place, whether it's subjects of racism, of whether it has to do with social or economic inequality, you name it. And I wanted to let you know that for the SELIHOT, as performed by the Ashkenazi world on August 28, we will be having a special program with two organizations. One of them, Jews United for Justice, that organizes over 14,000 Jews and allies from across the District of Columbia and Maryland to act on our shared Jewish values by pursuing social and economic justice and racial equity in our local communities. They are actually among the many things that we're pursuing. We are asking all of us to work towards Maryland paid family and medical leave. We hope that we can pray with all our hearts, to scrutinize our hearts, and then to move to the world and say that all the precious thoughts that we have can be achieved in some way in our society, whether it is in Miami, Florida, or anywhere where you live. So with that, I wanted to conclude tonight. Invite you, of course, to come back tomorrow, and we're continuing from Sundays through Thursdays, all the way until the afternoon of Yom Kippurim, of the Day of Judgment. And we hope that you continue coming and learning together. So, Laila Tov. Daniel, I want to tell you that there are many, many thoughts here in the chat. I don't know if you're able to read them. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for such a beautiful, beautiful presentation.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. So I say to everybody, Laila Tov.
Thank you.
May you have a pleasant evening, and see you tomorrow. Good night.
Gracias, Dani. Gracias, besos.
Muchos besos.
Muy lindo.
Muy lindo, muy nutritivo, como siempre.
Sí.
Muy inteligente la apuesta. Así
Bien.
Good night.